Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I'm Courtney Anderson, and this is episode 234. Episode 234. This is a show that is part of our Communications Communique series. Our Communications Communique series is all about communications. And because what we're talking about is very important information, it is in the form of a communique. Hence, Communications Communique. So here's what we are focusing on: how we share our ideas with other people. So it may be through our speech, it may be through the tone of our voice, it may be through the pitch of our voice, it may be through the speed of our voice, it could be through our body language, eye contact, facial expressions, body language, posture, breathing. There's so many wonderful and fantastic ways that we, as the multifaceted individuals that we are, relate to our world. And so what we're focusing on in this series is, of course, asking ourselves, how may we surpass our goals, and understanding that our communication skills directly relate to our outcomes in terms of career, income, relationships, fun, adventure. Do we get along with people? Do we get what we want, quote unquote, out of life in many instances? This comes back to communications. And of course, when we're looking at very specific professional outcomes, we need to be able to persuade other people. So those are going to be fine-tuned skills. We also, in our personal lives, often seek to inform other people, seek to engage other people, seek to motivate other people, inspire, and sometimes persuade other people, right? So how we communicate is incredibly important. We all think of that cliche, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. The challenge, though, it's not a cliche. It really is how you say it. And the how you say it part doesn't just mean actual vocalization with words. Again, it is everything from your posture, literally how you stand, how you sit, how you move, your gait, your breathing, your physical body. Is it tense? Is it relaxed? Your facial expressions, your gestures, your grip. If you shake someone's hand or pat someone on the back. So the thing that I love about this field and this series is this is not something I originally studied much in school, if at all, or even really thought much about. I thought, as many people incorrectly do, that what I needed to focus on was my knowledge. I need to acquire knowledge. I need to find areas that I have interests, and then I'm going to go out and apply that knowledge in my areas of interest, and it's going to be fantastic, and I'll have all these great opportunities to be of service to others professionally, and then as a volunteer, and yay, yay, yay. And then, as I've shared in these shows in this series, fortunately, I learned for me when I was in my 20s, or when I was somewhere around 20 years old, actually, that I was incorrect. And that if I focused on what I knew and I didn't understand how important it is that I become aware of how I convey information to other people, none of my dreams would come true. I wasn't going to be able to accomplish any of the fantasies at that point that I had of finishing different educational programs and attaining professional licenses and degrees, and then going out and doing all the dreams I had professionally, if I didn't understand that I was sabotaging and destroying my opportunities due to my poor communication skills. And I am a textbook example of almost probably every major area of communication, just complete failure. Very poor posture, my gait, my eye contact, my facial expressions, my grip when I would either shake someone's hand, or the speed of my speech, the tone. I mean, my goodness. And so, in some ways, this series is a super painful and I hope productive way for me to often use myself. And I go through in all of our shows in the series, the specific topic, I share examples of how I've been aware of and worked with, or if I've personally myself struggled with that. So when we did a show on, on, on speed, and I talked about speaking too fast, I spent a lot of time in in that episode, painfully sharing, my struggles in that area and my continued work to be vigilant and to continue to practice the tools that I need to use to make sure that I don't sabotage and destroy all of my dreams in life because I refuse to face these things. So again, it's not necessarily the most easy thing in this series because it's painful. This isn't something I come to you and say, oh, I have just naturally wonderful communication skills and I'd love to share how successful and wonderful and easy it is for me. That's not it. This is an area of I struggle. I do not naturally have the most effective skills. And then I've had habits that have built up since the earliest times that I learned my communication skills that are hard and really hard to address. But just because something's hard doesn't mean that it's not doable. It's totally doable. So from speed to posture to facial expression to body language, all of that, I've made incredible strides. And I work through and share and show and many examples of exactly what I'm talking about and how we can do this. So again, not an easy topic for me at all. Very, very painful in many instances. But I also understand that I literally, of course, wouldn't be doing this program if I didn't somewhere along the way figure out how important communication is, and all of the really fun things that I've done have been as a result of me taking this area incredibly seriously. So I love being on television shows, and I love giving speeches, and I love doing this program and these shows, and I love having the opportunity to be in court as a lawyer and to represent a client in front of a judge in an argument. And I love to be able to be with my students and teach them information. I can't do any of that unless I understood, and thankfully I had the experience somewhere around in my around the year when I was 20 years old. When I was in law school, I had a class where they videotaped us and forced us as the students to watch ourselves back on the video for in a sustained period of time. I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes or something. And that was it. It was a wake-up call. It's when I started to understand that it's not funny. And that the argument that I had lied to myself for years and sort of said, well, that's just who I am. That's just how I communicate. That's just how I stand. That's how I walk. That's how I make faces. I speak fast and use verbal crutches, to fill space. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, and like so. The tape was the tape. Thank goodness, right? Because if I hadn't had that, and honestly, it was just being in a class that required that, because it was training lawyers to be in court as litigators. If I hadn't had that happen, what would have happened to me? I have no idea, but I certainly wouldn't be here. And I'm grateful, really grateful that although it's painful, I'm really grateful that I had that wake-up call. And I got it. It's not a joke. It's not funny. This is serious. This is really serious. And that I could go learn all the knowledge in the world, but if I didn't address some of these communication challenges, all my dreams were going to come to naught, because I wouldn't be able to do any of the stuff I wanted to do, because my communication skills would be so poor. So today, what are we talking about? Today is one of the ones that actually, in this series, in my own personal selfish way, I'm a little bit less embarrassed, because this is not one of the specific issues that I individually have struggled with. Oh, thank goodness. Yet, it is one of the issues that I just recently had a phone call. So, our show today, for episode 234 of our program, our show today, the title is Speak Up. Speak up! Speak up! That's it. That's the show title. And all of that I was setting the basis for was one, also explaining why communications matters immensely. As I say in many of these shows, you could have the secret to the universe of eternal life and the cure for every ailment and perpetual joy for everyone, but it's going to be worthless because you can't communicate it effectively. So it'll stay locked inside your head and everybody will suffer because your communication skills are poor. That's an extreme example, yet more realistically, all of the knowledge and skills in the world won't help you if your communication skills are so poor because you won't have a chance to show them. You won't have a chance to use them because no one can even get to that point of your knowledge because the communication is such an obstacle. So recently I was on a phone call. So like we are out and about in life, and I was calling, I want to say it was a utility. You have to call your utilities. So where, however it's set up wherever you are in the world. Some utility for water, some utility for gas or electricity, and you got to set up utilities whenever you move, and then you got to make sure your accounts are correct and everything's paid and the billing is accurate and all of that kind of good stuff. Our internet utility, all of that. Yay us. So I was on the phone with a utility, and so the person that I dialed literally worked for the organization because that's the number I dialed, like customer service for the utility, and then they answered, and I was confident that that I dialed it correctly because they answered with something like city utilities. So that when they say city utilities and I dialed city utilities, I feel good that it's likely that I've dialed the right number. And then they started to say things like, hello, can I have your account number? And then I said, excuse me? Yes, hello? May I have your account number? May I please? Account number. And then again I say, excuse me? Can you please speak up? Yes. May I have your account? Have your account number? Okay, so how do I feel? First of all, calling my utilities is a good thing. I wasn't calling. It wasn't one of those horrible things where I hadn't paid my utility or they turned off my utilities or something like that, and I was stressed out because I didn't have any utility and I was upset. No, it was a good thing. Like the utilities are on, they were working. I wasn't even calling to complain or anything. I think I might have been calling to. You can have these things set up now where it's automatic. Like instead of them sending you a bill in the mail, they'll send you like an email bill, and then you can set it up, or they'll just automatically on a certain day every month. They'll you can put in what account to pay from, and then it'll pay on that certain day automatically, right? So it was one of those type things. I was dealing with one of those setups, getting it all set up nice and automatic and awesome, right? All right, so when I'm calling, and then I hear, hello, yes, may I have your account number? How do I feel? Do I feel super awesome, average, or awful? Well, like I said, this wasn't a bad day, and it wasn't a bad thing. I wasn't upset about the utilities. I just needed to get this done, right? And for some reason, I had to speak to the person. I don't remember exactly what it was. It doesn't really matter. But for whatever reason, I needed to, right? And it was something I couldn't correct myself on their website, right? So obviously, I wouldn't call if I could have done it without the call, because I already had to wait on hold, right, for a while just to get to this person. So you have to call. You got to push a whole bunch of buttons, right, to be able to even get in line to talk to a human, and then you have to wait to talk to a human. So all this had, sort of happened prior to me getting the person who won't speak up. And so I, when I use the terms, excuse me, or can you speak up? I wasn't hearing like they were on a bad mobile phone. It wasn't like it was staticky. It was just that they weren't speaking up. And this is not the first time that I've encountered one of these low speakers, low volume speakers, right? They speak so softly that they're not, they're not failing to enunciate or be articulate. It's not that. So they're not slurring their words or anything like that. It's just that the volume is so low. I can't hear you. And the really frustrating thing was they were at their job. And even more frustrating, literally their job was to talk on on the phone to a customer, right? It's not like I went to their house, and I'm bothering them while they're, relaxing, playing video games in their free time, and they're like, "Hello, can I have your account number?" No, I called their job where they work, or I assume they're paid. I don't assume. I would know it's illegal, if they weren't. Literally, their job is to talk on the phone. So speaking up is really imperative because I can't do any of this unless I can hear you. And like I said, it's not the first time it's happened. And in fact, this happens rather frequently. I've heard this happen in so many settings in life, right? You hear it when you're watching people in meetings. And so there's a meeting and, everyone's talking and then they get to, one person and he says things like, "I'm really glad that you guys wanted to, I listened to what my results were. My results are pretty, I think they're pretty impressive and I'm looking forward to." "Excuse me, we can't hear you." So let's cut to some of the chase with this. Depending on where you are in the world, there's going to be a cultural expectation of what's normal in terms of normal rate of speed, how quickly you speak, and in terms of the volume, how loud or softly you speak. And the science and the study of how that's determined in the society over periods of time is fascinating. We don't have the time and ability to go into that today, but it is something really interesting I think you should look into. And as you and I interact with people around the world, either from where we are, just interacting with people, or going and traveling around the world, I love that diversity. It's awesome. So one of the things that we do when we're dealing with these challenges is to be aware that these things are something that they're not universal. So you have to adjust to the culture that you're in. But I'm not talking about, like, I called a utility a different culture, and there was just a mismatch between that culture volume and my culture. No, I called someone in the same culture that I was literally sitting in exactly the same city. Now, I don't know if that person was in that city. I don't know if that person was somewhere else in the world. That's not relevant. What's relevant is that the expectation was that the person would speak at a volume where I could hear them. When someone's on the phone and they're speaking so softly that I can't hear them, it's frustrating. So what happens when the low volume, soft speaking person does that? Then the listener, you strain to listen, and you start thinking like everybody else would. Is something wrong with my hearing? You think maybe something's wrong with my equipment. Maybe I messed up on my end. So I turned down my volume. Nope. Do you check all that stuff? No, it's not my volume. It's not. And you ask them, are you in a bad line? Is this a bad call? Nope. Mm-mm. So it's not the technology. They just are doing it. And I've been in the room with people. I gave the little hypothetical, a few minutes ago. Somebody's in a meeting, right? And it's like, okay, tell us what you got. Yeah, my results are they're pretty much what I expected they would be. What? So once we figure out there's not a technology problem, especially if we're in the same room with someone, so we're literally looking at them in physical space, so there is no technology to use that could be causing the low volume. Then the listener gets really frustrated. Because whatever it is you're saying, if it is important, I don't know because I can't hear it. And so the listener strains to listen. And yes, we all have different levels of hearing, our hearing, what we can hear. Sometimes we get to a range with our hearing where maybe we have a diminished hearing, and maybe that's something on our end. Then maybe we would use a hearing aid or something like that. So that's something when I go to the doctor, they check, your hearing. From the time I was a little kid, they used to do it in school when I was a little kid. They come to the school and every kid would go check their hearing, check their eyes. It's like a good way, right, to make sure that we're checking. And as an adult, I go to my doctor, they check, right? Can you hear me? We're checking. Get a hearing test. So I'm assuming also that I had, good results on my test, that I don't need any special equipment, or if I do have a hearing aid, I'm using it, right? So it's not me again. Like, I'm checking to make sure it's not me, the recipient. So once we eliminate all of this and it's not on my end, that means that person is intentionally doing this. I can't get my work done in terms of talking to the city utility about whatever it is I'm trying to do because they won't speak up because I can't hear them. And I'm getting really frustrated. And when you're in a meeting with someone and they're doing that low talking, low volume thing. Yeah, I just want to tell everybody that my results were, in line with what I predicted. And again, I'm frustrated. So I'm going to do two things. I'm gonna try to figure out if there's something I can do to like end this frustration. So it may be that I might think to myself, you know what, I will just hang up on this city utility person. I'll say something. I'm not going to do it rudely, but I'm going to say, I would say something like, I'm sorry, I really am unable to hear you. And since I can't hear you, I'm not going to be able to have you help me with my account. So I'll just go ahead and can I get transferred to somebody else? Or I'll just go ahead and hang up and call back in and get another agent. Okay, so that's an option, right? If I'm in a meeting and it's something where, I don't have the control to end the meeting and the person's talking, then I'll just zone out. I just stop listening. I'll just start daydreaming and move whatever it is that they're doing that I can't really hear to the background even more so that I'm not thinking about it. I'll just think about something else, maybe what I'm going to eat later or what I'm going to do this weekend, because I'm going to get frustrated if I have to keep listening to the person who is intentionally speaking at such a low volume I cannot hear them. Again, it's not that they're not articulating the words, they are. They're just at such a low volume that no one can hear. They're speaking so softly, and I have to say this, I wrote this on our CourtneyAnderson.com site. We have, of course, a page or more for all of our shows, and this is episode 234. So for the CourtneyAnderson.com episode 234, come to that microsite. And I wrote on there, they're speaking so softly that it's not killing me softly. And there's a great classic song, right? You're killing me softly. I cannot sing, so I'm not even going to try because that's a classic. And then also their remakes of the original Killing Me Softly that are classics themselves, right? So that's like such a great song. You're not killing them softly, right? With love songs, you're speaking so softly, you're killing your career. Oh, okay. I wrote it down, so I had to say it. I wrote it on the show page. But it's accurate. Why are you doing this? And especially when this is your job to convey information. So when you're on the phone and you're speaking, and it's so softly that no one else can really, really hear you. Yes, you're killing your career. Because like I said, as the customer, I'm either going to ask you to transfer me to somebody else or I'm going to hang up. Or if I was in person, I would just go to somebody else or I'd walk out. I'm going to complain. I mean, you're not going to be effective because I can't hear you. If I'm in a meeting with you, whatever it was you were saying, I don't know. And neither does anybody else in that room. Even the people who are nodding their heads and pretending like they're listening, they are not because they cannot hear you. And the weird thing is, I've seen this. I honestly don't know how many times, but I've seen this in so many settings for so many decades that I've even seen people, especially when it's at work, right? So somebody's saying something, and then another person will say, hey, I can't really hear you. Can you speak up a little bit? Can you speak up? And then the person will go from what they were originally doing. Yeah, I mean, I just think my results were, they were pretty impressive. And then they'll go to, yeah, I think some of the results were pretty impressive. And what I normally will hear them do is maybe raise the volume on just a few syllables, and then they'll trail off again, lower volume at the end of whatever it is they were saying. So they're not really doing it. Maybe it's slightly, but they haven't hit that cultural average volume that we expect because I can't hear you. And we're not in like a music concert where, then it makes sense because there's like a live band behind you. We're not. No, I mean, literally we're on one audio connection, right? Phone or video conference, or we're in one physical room together. I'm sitting 5 feet from you. I still can't hear you. And even when people ask them to speak up, they still don't get it. So that's why we're doing the show. It is killing a career. It's so disrespectful to other people. Look, I even put in the show notes because there are some archetypes, I think, especially entertainers. And especially for global entertainers that people are familiar with, sort of, what they look like and what they did as an athlete or a singer or performer. We have ideas. And so the two that come to my mind are for males and females, Marilyn Monroe, I don't think it's something that can be debated, global icon. And Marilyn Monroe had passed away before I was born, long before I was born, and yet I'm very familiar with her, and many other people younger than I am are, because she continues to have presence in the society. And one of the things that she was, known and recognized for was a soft, sort of, breathy kind of way of speaking. It's very soft, breathy. Okay, so I wrote in the show notes for this episode 234 on CourtneyAnderson.com, and then we have 14 sort of highlighted show points. That's my stone of solutions, right? 14 items, one stone. And I said, you're not Marilyn Monroe. First of all, Marilyn Monroe, obviously, clearly, because like I said, she wasn't. By the time this predeceased me by quite a while, and definitely for people who are younger, but people still know who she is, right? And so clearly, it's some measurement was successful. And from the films I've seen and the things I've seen, it had a very, stylistic and distinctive way of doing things. But people could hear her. Had she been doing what I'm talking about people doing in my real life and in meetings I've been in or phone calls I've tried to make, I literally can't hear you well enough to understand you. Now, again, if you are a international movie star, performer, global icon, and you're a huge success, then ignore what I'm saying. If you literally are like Marilyn Monroe, then then of course you probably wouldn't be listening to our show, because your communication skills are incredibly effective. As a male, people often will think of Michael Jackson, no longer with us. And Michael Jackson, very soft spoken, right? Okay, again, yet was heard. How do I know that? Because again, everyone knew who Michael Jackson was. I've been in parts of the world where I would think there's no way people would know, like, an American music star and literally hear like a Michael Jackson song come on, and people know it and they're dancing and everything, and I'm thinking, now that that is, wow, that's amazing. Okay, my point being, again, if you are that person at that level of sort of global dominance and people all over the world know you and enjoy your music, then I'm not talking to you. And if you're affecting like a speech pattern, thinking like that makes you more successful, it isn't. The moment it crosses over from, hey, they speak kind of softly, to I literally am not able to consistently understand what you're saying, you're not helping yourself, you're hurting yourself. And I don't mean this as a joke. I mean this incredibly seriously. But, trying to figure out why somebody does this, there's a couple of reasons. So we went over earlier what I'm going to do in my troubleshooting, right? I'm going to ask, is it my phone? Is it my reception? Is it there? Is it my physical body? Is my hearing okay? I go through that checklist. No, my doctor says my hearing's okay. So it's not me, or I've got my hearing aid in, so I'm okay. My equipment's working, and or I'm in the same room with them, so there is no equipment. So that checks out my side. So then I'm going to go to them. Why are they doing this? Right? So there could be a medical reason. If you're someone who has had feedback where people say to you, speak up, or I can't really hear you, then that's a clue. And I really want to underscore this point. As I've shared in the other shows in this series where I'm sharing things that personally I struggle with, talking too fast, verbal crutches, posture, facial expressions, the whole litany of things that I said I learned the hard way, but I did learn, so that's the good thing, right? Then the number one thing that embarrasses me to myself is I had feedback way before I saw the video when I was in law school. Way before that video, people had said to me, stand up straighter, or slow down with your speech. People had said that to me, and I completely dismissed it. I thought to myself, well, they need to listen faster, or what are they talking about? I can stand and do whatever I want, right? So I had feedback, which I ignored, which continued then to ensure that I would continue to fail in so many areas of these communication requirements to do the things I wanted to do in life. If you're somebody and someone said to you, you need to speak up, guess what? That's the same red flag I had. And I am begging you, I am literally begging you to hear it and to do something about it. So there's two big main causes. Maybe there's something going on physically or physiology wise that's causing you to have volume challenges. So I put a link to the American Speech Language Hearing Association, and they've got some PDF files about voice disorders, right? And and so actually, just an overview of some basic voice disorders, which I think is some good information. And it says on one of the slides, see your doctor if you have to work hard to be loud enough to be heard. So it could be that there's something going on, mechanically that's causing this. Okay, so that's something you need to go to the doctor and find out, is there something that's happening that's resulting in this, so that we can get that addressed. If it's not that, if it turns out, no, okay, everything should work like it needs to in terms of your ability to reach the cultural volume norm, then the question is, why are you doing this? And how you're going to stop doing it is easy, right? It's just like everything else in the communication. First, you have to figure out exactly what it is you're doing. So we say this in every one of these shows. You're going to have to record yourself, literally video and sound, and then force yourself to watch it for extended periods of time. So you can't turn it on for like 10 seconds and then say, I get it. No, you don't. You need to turn it on and leave it running. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You need to do it on multiple days. So you keep forcing yourself over and over again until you get how bad this issue is, because other people have mentioned it to you. So it's not something that you're imagining, it's real. And yet you've ignored it. So why are you doing this? And you have goals, and you have specific things you're trying to achieve in your life. And to stand around and to diminish your ability to be effective because you refuse to be heard hurts you, but it hurts everybody else. Like I said, you could have some amazing secret to the universe, but I can't find out what it is because you won't speak up. Why are you doing this? So it's not some affectation. I just went over that. You're not a star, right? If you are a star, then you probably wouldn't be in the show because you're already, so successful. So you're not imitating someone in a good way when you're getting bad feedback, right? And we talked about what it does to other people. They get really frustrated with you. They feel like, why am I straining to listen to this? I found another link I have on the show page is to a blog, and it's all about voice dynamics, and it says this. So it's talking specifically about our low volume speakers, okay? And it says this: what is interesting is that your soft spoken voice is not normal. What this means is that you are not part of the median group when it comes to your volume. Your volume is falling somewhere below the median, somewhere below average. The problem for those of us who strain to hear your message is that we tire of straining to hear you. We tire of asking you to repeat yourself. If that happens often enough, those of us with larger voices will take over the conversation. And being constantly interrupted or talked over is not good for your self-esteem. I will also add, on my own, it's not good for your career. It's what I said earlier. You're not killing them softly, right? You're killing your career. When anybody does this, any gender, any age, any background, any skill set, any height, any size, anything, anybody does this, it frustrates the other people. And they immediately are going to try to do two things. They're going to ask you if you'll speak up. You don't. And if this topic applies to you, then I know that somebody has said to you before, somewhere in your life, speak up. Because I know this, because I've been the one hearing this from other people in my life on the things I'm doing that are harming my communications and hurting me and killing my career. So I know that people have told you this. They either just ignore you, even if they sit there and they make eye contact and they nod their head, they're not listening because they can't hear you. And you refuse to treat them with respect, but mostly you're hurting yourself. And so what I think of someone who I can't hear is a couple of things. After the frustration part, I'll usually think, especially in the United States culture, right? I'm going to think that you're not confident, right? Because confident, assertive people speak up. I can be confident and assertive and have all different types of pitches. So I could have a low-pitched voice, I'm confident. I could have a high-pitched voice. I'm confident. I can still hear you. We're talking about volume. And this isn't a gender issue, because when I've done workshops on this, and some of you may have met me when I'm doing a communications workshop, and I've been doing these for, 15 years now almost, or right around 15 years, going around doing these at times. When I do these, people sometimes will say, well, it's a gender issue, and I'm a female, and so I speak softer. No, it's not. Look, hey, yes, do women have generally different pitched voices than males? Yes, that's healthy, normal, and there's great, again, explanations for this. We can study lots of differences between females and males that are all wonderful and normal and healthy. The volume of your voice is what I'm discussing, not the pitch. When someone is articulate and someone is enunciating their words, which is the example we're using here, because people who do not enunciate their words, it's a whole nother topic and a whole different show. We're just talking about somebody who does. So we just can't hear you, the volume. Why are you doing this? Some people will argue that they're shy. Okay, I totally personally relate to shyness. I'm a very shy person, extremely shy. At different times in my life have been so shy. I have hurt myself socially, right? I won't even go to the school dance because I'm so shy, painfully shy. And I'm incredibly introverted. So I do understand. When we talk about issues related to how you feel about yourself, then that's a whole fantastic opportunity for you to invest in understanding how you see yourself, how you perceive yourself, how you treat yourself, the self-care in terms of, do you respect your opinion? Do you respect your ideas? And we have so many programs that I really ask you to take the time, bookmark the site, come back, invest in these different tools and different programs and resources so you can get to the core issue there, so you can get yourself to a point where you do feel good about yourself. Where you feel about yourself, you know what? I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I'm here and I should be here, and so my opinion is just as valid as anybody else's. Okay, so that's kind of where I am most of the time, right? Even when I'm really nervous or frightened or scared or anxious, I still think to myself, why not me? I'm here. I have equal worth and value as anybody else. Okay, so, and get yourself to whatever healthy place works for you, so you feel confident in yourself. I should be. Literally, I should exist, and then I should be in this call or in this meeting, whatever, right? So when you get to that place, then we can talk about the volume, because if you're dealing with these other issues, and the soft spoken is a way for you to try to disappear and be invisible, then that is a very, very serious issue. And I am getting emotional just talking about this. We've done shows on, we did a show on I Feel Invisible. I have the links on the show page for that for you to visit. But you don't do this to yourself. Don't erase yourself or try to lower the volume so much hoping that no one will ever notice you, because it's painful. It hurts me that someone would do that to themselves, because whatever you have to say is very important. But you're going to have to do a lot of work if the cause is this thing where you don't view yourself as worthy. The beautiful part is that's not going to cost you really anything but time. Right? And then as you get to the point where you do see yourself as I see you, and as everyone should see you, of value, of intrinsic value, well, then now, in your mind, you think, well, yeah, why not me, right? I have something to say. All right. So that's a lot of other work, but I want to underscore that I do understand for some people, the low volume is just a way to just hide. And they think if I talk low enough, then people will tune me out, and then they'll just ask me not to talk again. And then I can just go back to hiding and being invisible. This is very unhealthy. And it's not at all something that we're going to tolerate in our programs and our listeners, because, come on. No. Your ideas deserve to be heard, and they will be heard. And I'm not going to let you hurt yourself and abuse yourself and negate yourself. It's just, no. So once we get to the point, or we have people who it's not a thing about my ideas, it's not a thing about I don't feel I'm worthy of being heard, because that's a whole nother problem. But assuming that we're not dealing with that, right? Then we'd have to be, again, I'm gonna reiterate, you're not imitating, somebody that maybe you see in the public eye, thinking that you're cool, because you're not cool, because I can't hear you. You're not speaking softly and carrying a big stick. That's a concept often attributed to former president of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, in terms of foreign policy, right? But it's not effective because you're not speaking softly where it's effective, right? With the big stick, you're speaking so softly, I don't even know what it is you're saying. I'm coming back to this over and over again because that's the problem. When somebody says speak up, it's not, I disagree with you, I think you're an idiot, you're a horrible person. It's literally, I don't even understand exactly what you're fully saying, especially for people who do this. And as I said, they'll have a tendency to trail off at the end of their sentences. They'll get quieter and quieter at the end of words and phrases, which makes it even worse, right? Because whatever it was you're saying, I heard a little of it, and then you took it away from me, the volume, right? Okay. Now, I know, and obviously we're going to do a whole nother show on the people who have loud talkers, people who are louder than average. And of course, being in a lot of the areas I'm in professionally, professional speakers, entertainers, lawyers, many of that group, not surprised, are loud talkers. And we'll talk about that in that show. That's not what we're talking about right now. I'm talking about people we need to get up to the average. People can hear you. You're not changing your pitch. I'm not talking about, and that's where like I said, when we've done workshops on this before, I've had some people, well, I'm a female and I just speak high pitch. I'm not talking about your pitch. I'm talking about your volume. You need to get the air up and out, right? So you use your diaphragm, and what you're going to have to do is project to a certain extent. Projection. Okay? And so when we're discussing this, again, you're not somebody this isn't related to somebody who's dealing with an issue of not valuing themselves and their own voice, but it's just somebody who either A, thought it was effective, it isn't, or B, thought it was, kind of cute because it was like someone that they were thinking they're emulating, it isn't. It's really, really ineffective, and it's disrespectful, and it is hurting you. And so anytime we change our habits, there's an adjustment, even if that habit is horrible. So I struggle with all types of communication challenges. When I am struggling with my challenge of speaking too fast, too quickly, right? Then it's an adjustment for me to slow down. That doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means it's different. And I understand, because I set some goals for myself, that it's imperative. I have to do this if I want to do all the other things I dreamed of with my career and in my regular personal life. I got to slow down. If you need to speak up, then yes, it'll be an adjustment. And so it might feel a little bit uncomfortable initially. You might feel like, oh, I'm a little louder than I'm comfortable. But the thing is, I'm telling you, your comfort level is not effective. My comfort level of speed, what I naturally like to do, is comfortable. Yes. It is not effective because it's too fast. Your comfort level of volume is too low. So yes, you're going to need to literally, and this is something I've talked about in other shows. So if you've never, worked with a speech therapist, speech pathologists, there's a lot of great information, of course, now online where you can find, I'm sure, great resources and even ways to work you through some of the exercises of how do you sort of practice projecting. You need to use your breath, okay, and work on just raising that volume a little bit. And then you need to remember to be consistent with that volume so I can hear all of your words and you don't trail off at the end of your things. You need to stay at a volume where I can continue to hear you. So there's great resources available for you. So we talked about a couple of things. One, you need to make sure it's not some sort of a medical or physiological challenge, right? So check with your doctor or a specialist to make sure that there might not be something. Because if you say, hey, I'm straining, right? Like my vocal cords are exhausted because I'm trying, everything I can to speak as loud as I can, and all I keep getting is people telling me to speak up, then that's something I implore you to get a medical professional to help you with, because that may be something that's indicative of some sort of a medical issue that they need to address, right? Okay. If it's not medical but or physical, and it's something related to how you see yourself, and you're intentionally speaking quietly because you don't want anybody to hear you, because you don't want anybody to call on you again in the meetings, right? Then I'm literally begging you not to do that. Do not erase yourself. Do not negate yourself. You have a voice. You're going to use it. Then we get to maybe the group of people who thought maybe they were trying to sound cool. Maybe some people think if I speak really softly, then people will come close to me. And I like people to be close. Okay, look, not effective when we're working, right? If you're thinking I'll just be really quiet and then I'll give me a whole bunch of power because then people have to lean in and get really close and all this kind of stuff. Look, no, it's not effective. There are certain types of entertainers where it might be effective, and sometimes you'll read about an entertainer. I can think of several male actors right now that's coming to my mind who, award winning, who do this, who use very low volumes of speech to draw you in as a viewer, and that's effective in some, again, theatrical or performing venues, especially when you're wearing a microphone. Okay, when you're just out in regular life and you're not mic'd and you're not performing, then no. I don't need to stop my whole world so that everybody can, lean in to you and some sort of manipulation thing so that you get all this, in your mind, heightened attention. It's not effective. And it's disrespectful and it's hurting you. So save that for the stage, or save that for a vehicle where it would be effective. I'm not saying there aren't times. Of course there are. I use volume and silence and on pacing and all kind of things in different settings, especially when you're doing more of a performance, right? But when you're just conveying information, just convey it. Just tell me, right? We're in the meeting or you're answering the phone and I'm calling your business for a question. Just answer. Just speak up. How do you do it? You literally just have to record and force yourself to be exposed to currently what you're doing over and over again. And you got to come to a conclusion in your mind that this is a serious challenge. This isn't something that you can just think, oh, it's not a big deal. It is a huge deal, because whatever it is that you're thinking and whatever it is that you dream and whatever it is that you want, it's not going to happen as effectively as it could, or it may not happen at all because I can't hear you. And in many cultures, I will speak for a moment here, in many business cultures, when you're that quiet, I perceive that you don't have self-esteem, and I also perceive that you don't think you're powerful. And I don't care what your job title is. The way we relate, just human to human, you need to demonstrate leadership, especially if you are in a leadership position, with your voice. And I'm not talking about yelling. I'm just talking about speaking at a normal tone so I can hear you. And then, or a normal volume. And then you talk, and then we use tone. So it's ineffective to yell and scream at people because they don't listen when you yell and scream. The moment somebody starts yelling and screaming, all of us tune them out. Especially if they yell and scream and then they use words that are insulting or mean or, obscenities. I tune you out. I'm not hearing anything you're saying because I don't want to hear it because it's bad and it's mean, right? So it's not effective. What is effective is a voice that you can hear, and then the tone tells me everything I need to know. Have I disappointed that person? Does that person expect more out of me? It's in the tone. They're not using any bad words. They're not yelling and screaming. They're not insulting anybody. It's the tone. But you got to hear them. I'm just trying to get, this show is just about so that we can hear you. Later we can, in other shows, talk about the tone and how the words are conveyed in terms of emotion and how effective that is. So we're not talking about yelling. We're not talking about anything like that. We're just talking about, I just need to hear you. And the question you need to go work through is, why don't you want to be heard? And I threw out some suggestions. Maybe that you want to be heard, but there's something going on where you're really giving it everything you can, and you're not able to turn up your volume at the medical, or you feel emotionally or psychologically that you don't deserve to be heard. You're not good enough to be heard. That's a whole other issue. We talked about that, and please take that seriously and work through that and get whatever help is available, because that's just not, it's not true. Of course you deserve to be heard. I want to hear you. And then we talked about there might be some people who just think it's kind of that they're being cool, and I'm saying that you're not, because it's not working. Because you don't have the job that allows you to do that. You're not an international movie star in a movie because people are asking you to speak up. I guarantee you when people are using this that are very successful, they were able to communicate effectively because you know who they are, right? And the other issue is it might just be a habit. And that's probably the majority of people. It's just a habit. It's just that's how you were used to. And so when it was the habit, that's why I said, that's all we got to do is get the adjustment. First, we have to force ourselves to listen to it and be exposed to it so we understand exactly what we're doing. And then you have to force yourself to practice. You need to literally sit down and do your practice where you do your normal speech and then you practice. And maybe in what I did working through my speech pathologist for some of my other issues with my vocal cords due to poor vocal hygiene, due to not using microphones enough, and some of the other things I've talked about in other shows, because I didn't understand really anything about the vocal hygiene or use. I just sort of got out and started giving speeches and talking all the time without understanding what I was doing to my body. She would time us, and she would give us exercises. So you may have a time where you practice. I'm going to go for whatever, 30 seconds at this higher volume, and then I'm going to record that, on my smartphone, and then play that back and play the other one where I'm my regular and hear the difference. And if you've got somebody in your community of caring who you can listen to that and have them tell you the feedback. Hey, does that sound? Yeah, that sounds better. And then you have to be vigilant. Literally, like for me, when I'm dealing with one of my many issues I struggle with, I literally in my head remember, and I have a whole bunch of tools and reminders and stuff written down and everything, right? I'm going to slow down my speech. I'm going to deal with my posture. I'm going to address these issues with my tone and my facial expression. And then in my head, while I'm speaking, I'm remembering and using my vocal mental techniques to keep me moving on track, right? I'm slower. So if it's someone who needs to speed up, who needs to have a higher volume, then you're going to have to be remembering this. Because when you stop thinking about it, you're probably going to do what I do with habit. I'm just going to revert to my normal speed and my normal verbal crutches and my normal, all the stuff that's destructive. I'm just going to, because that's relaxing for me. It's a little bit of an adjustment, and I have to remember to think about it. When I'm speaking for communication, then the whole time, I'm not the whole time in a stressed out way, slow down. But I am remembering and I am listening to myself. That's why when I keep saying you record yourself and you play it back, because you have to get used to listening to yourself. And then what you're listening for are some of the things that you struggle with. So for me, it's slowing down. If you need to speak up, you need to get used to listening to yourself. Because if you don't do this and stay really mindful, like really focused on I'm listening to what I'm saying, right? Then you're going to get right back into the habit of getting too low volume or trailing off at the end of your phrases, and you're going to get right back where you were. You have to pay attention. And of course, the beauty of this is that it just takes you some commitment. I mean, to say, you know what, I'm not going to sabotage myself. I'm not going to sink my career because I won't speak up. I'm going to figure out what was causing it, or at least what I'm pretty sure was causing it, and then I'm going to address it through these techniques of practicing and repeating over and over again what this other volume sounds like and hearing myself back. That's really important. And then you're going to start testing it out. And one of the easiest ways when you test it out is you're going to hear less, hopefully at some point, none of people saying to you, hey, speak up. And remember, this is where you need the expert help. You're not going to be to a point where you're straining and you're screaming and you're yelling. That's nowhere near what I'm talking. I'm just talking about a regular volume. And that's where you might need to have somebody, help you understand how to calibrate that. In addition to you recording yourself, you don't want to overcompensate. Some people do that, right? They're thinking, I was told I need to speak up. This is my idea. Okay, now you're yelling, and now I can't hear you, right? So and like I said, this is why this is a fascinating field. It really is. But there's a band, there's a range of normal volume, and some people be on the lower end, and some be on the higher end. But when you move too far away from the average, then you're going to be to a point where you're so loud you're perceived as shouting, or you're so quiet I can't hear you, right? And so that's what we're dealing with, are these extremes that are preventing people from understanding the substance of your message. The substance of your message is important. I know it is, and I want and you want people to hear it so that your life is more fulfilling, so that you can help other people, so you can help yourself, so that it's also easier, right? And that's what we're working on. And it all it is just, is just getting so much through practice and repetition that you hear, and you've been hearing yourself played back on your recordings at this more appropriate cultural average volume. And it may be that you came from some culture and went somewhere else, and where you used to be your volume was awesome and average, and now it isn't, but you just got to adjust. I mean, that's just because now you have these other great opportunities where other people can hear you. The most important and exciting and awesome thing is you have a chance to speak. You're at a meeting. You were invited to speak. You're on a phone call. You got hired for the job. That's awesome. Now what we got to do now is just execute. So again, when you're going to do some work and figure out what you think might be the issues, or go down some of these. If you think it might be a couple of them, check and make sure it's not anything medical. Check and make sure that it's not you thinking that you're emulating somebody in a cool way, and but it might just be habit. It could be just self-esteem, but whatever it is, you're going to once you look at that cause, then you're going to utilize the types of solutions related to that cause, but all of them are going to require you to do the practicing. I mean, no matter what the cause was necessarily, you may have different issues, obviously, if you're dealing with a medical condition or something that was sort of emotional or self-esteem related, but at some point you're still going to need to get to this part where you're going to record yourself, and you're going to record yourself feeling like you're trying to be loud enough, and you're going to do different versions of that, and you're going to record it, and you're going to play it back, and you're going to use your own feedback, and you're going to listen to other people's feedback. I'm going to, and again, continue to beg you to get out and see what resources from experts are available in different credible sources online, and let me know if there's anything I can do to point you in a direction, or if you get to a point and feel like you're not really sure where else to go for help. And so please, please, please speak up. You are important, and what you have to say is important. And this is something that I am absolutely, completely confident that you're going to address, and that you're going to practice, and you're going to get out there, and then you're going to do it, and you're going to speak at a volume that people in that area, in that part of the society, say, yeah, I heard you loud and clear. Okay, now the next part is to deal with the substance of what you said. It's a whole nother show, but this is all about communications, and we're not going to ever be sabotaged by things when the help is here. The help is here, and let's just, like I said, it's painful for me, but I'm also proud. Because if I hadn't faced this, and if I wasn't willing to go through some of the embarrassment or discomfort or the pain, I couldn't get better. And I'm better. Am I where I will be hopefully eventually when I could, the end of how my growth continues and how much better I can get? No, I'm sure there's a lot of room for improvement. But I'm on the path, and I know empirically I'm much better than I was before. Much better than I was before, and I know that you, just like I am doing, we're going to attack this, and we're going to address it, and we're going to get out there, and we're going to sharpen these communication skills until they are just the best they can be, and it's going to make so many things in our lives so much better. So thank you for being part of the show today on episode 234. As always, continue to come to CourtneyAnderson.com. Let me know if you have any show ideas. Leave your show reviews and ratings on iTunes or Libsyn or any of our partners around the world. I am also on Twitter at Zealous Business, and continue to let me know how I may be of service and part of your process where you continue to work to surpass your goals. Thank you so much.